down further. You have a certain ratio for your rise to run, and it's a very minimal amount. Technically, it's 6'6", I believe, for this area, and we're asking to extend it to be 8'10" instead, so it's only roughly about 2 feet. But this allows us to keep the stairs the same alignment or character as the neighboring properties, where you have a direct access up to the first floor and a direct access down to the cellar level, as opposed to like having to make the stairs an L shape, which would look really out of character for the street. For the elevations, again, for the front, we are going to keep everything to the best of its ability in line with the character. Our goal is to just replace the windows in kind, do very minimal repair work if necessary to the brick, and the addition will again be tucked further back, but it would be of the hardy siding material to be in line with all the other additions in the neighborhood on that street. And for the same thing again for the rear addition. And with that, we can open it up to questions.
Well, at this time, let's let Commissioner Padro and the zoning committee give a little, what their thoughts are, and we can move on to a vote.
Sure, why don't we start with the committee?
I've met with the project people here, and we had a good meeting. I visited the property. The building is a very nice addition to the community, and to get it upgraded and become a working piece of housing. It's going to be a wonderful compliment. I don't see that there's any issue that would preclude us from giving our support to this project. They have worked hard, and the only issue that we're mentioning today is the flag test with the small part of the building structure, and unfortunately that can be addressed. So we would like to recommend support.
And the committee voted?
And the committee voted unanimously for the support of this project.
So the Civic Association also has heard a presentation from the applicants. I think that most of the issues have been addressed successfully. They are in support. There was a request for the contractors to start work at 8 a.m. instead of 7 a.m., which the developer agreed to do, which we're very grateful for. So I would move that Advisory Neighborhood Commission 6E support the design concept for 1704 10th Street Northwest, and also support the public space relief required to allow the stair to extend further into public space than would normally be allowed, and that we report that support to the Historic Preservation Review Board and the District Department of Transportation.
I second that.
Excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. All right, at this time, we're going to allow Kenyatta Robinson, the MDT SID, to give a little presentation on the park study.
I told them I'd do is push that button.
Is it just?
It's coming on.
Yeah, we just.
I think we just need to adjust it down.
Yeah, Anthony.
I probably should move it closer.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, so while Jerome gets that set up, and I know there's a packed agenda tonight, there's a lot of information that folks want to talk about, maybe not necessarily open space and parks, but I'll introduce the subject really quickly. For those of you for whom this is the first time you're hearing about this topic, some of you may have heard about the work that's underway, and so this will be an update to you. But just by way of introduction, we're the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District. We're one of DC's 10 business improvement districts. We're the only business improvement district with the word community. We're a community improvement district in our name because when we were founded, we recognized that having the support of the community would be a vital element to our success. So we've been around for close to 15 years. We're the neighborhood that's bordered by New Jersey Avenue, New York Avenue, and Massachusetts Avenue near Mount Vernon. The park study. I'll just introduce it really quickly, and see if we can get this. Looks like that's the best we can do. want to talk really quickly about the first principles, the charter that sort of set the stage for our work. And we realized in order to be successful, the effort that we're undertaking first has to be transparent. That's why we're here tonight. There's got to be a level of transparency in terms of some of the options we discussed, and we want this to be a community-driven, community-led process. We'll talk about that a little bit in terms of the community engagement we did last week. And then this study has to also not recreate the wheel, but build upon previous planning efforts. There's been a lot of planning efforts with respect to parks and open space in the downtown part of DC that we're located in, started in about 2000, year 2000. And all of those studies all envision publicly owned land as being critical to providing that open space. And so we're going to build on top of that. So in terms of the overview and purpose of the study, first we want to articulate the community preferences and priorities for open space and have that reflected back into some of the options and strategies that are presented. We want to provide a path to execution for the strategy developed. And we want to create a plan that serves as a guiding document for strategy implementation. So a lot of fancy words, what does that mean? People call me often and say, there's this little triangle park that's owned by National Park Service. Why can't that be a dog park? Then somebody halfway down the road says, there's that park over there. Why can't that be a dog park? And then someone up the street, there's a park there. Why can't that be a dog park? Well, not all spaces can be dog parks. And maybe some people want to do other things in those spaces as well. And so we want to create something that's holistic, something that's strategic, that says, okay, maybe this space is more appropriate for strollers, this space is more appropriate for leashes, this space is more appropriate for just chilling out. All right, and so we want to come up with a master plan that guides all the efforts that we're going to do moving forward to define how these spaces are going to be used moving forward. So why are we doing this now? Next row. So we know from the DC Department of Parks and Rec's Play DC Master Plan produced just a couple of years ago that Mount Vernon Triangle, the area around it, is the 9th most populated area in the district, and we're only growing. We're adding about 600 more units just within the next couple of weeks, with 2 properties delivering and then more in the pipeline. But we have the 4 floors provision of open space as recommended per the Parks DC plan. So growing community, large community, very dense, a lot of high-rise buildings, no green space. We also poll our community quite often, and we know right now, based on a survey that's currently open, that only a quarter of the people who responded to the survey feel as if there's adequate quality and supply of open space within the community. So those 2 things coming together tell us there's a need for this type of amenity in the community. In terms of, I wanted to make sure you saw this, I skipped over this by accident, but our community is shown here in sort of the translucent highlight. And those rings, the first ring is a 1/4 mile from our epicenter at 5th and K, the next ring is a 1/2 mile, the final ring is a mile. And you see whether it's sort of, Park Service land or DC land, these are all the parks and open spaces in and around downtown DC. And you look at the community that comprises Mount Vernon Triangle, and really all you see are a couple of NPS pocket parks, and then some open space, that traffic circle known as Cobb Park. And so that right there just paints the picture in terms of what that need is. And we're not talking just about Mount Vernon Triangle. We've talked to Penn Quarter. Those folks, they have needs and desires. We've talked to folks from the Searson Quarter community, going over into Noma. We've talked to some folks who are in Lower Shaw. And so we're talking about meeting the needs of a growing downtown DC, not just Mount Vernon Triangle, but areas around the community. So in terms of what we're doing, this is a 5-phase effort. I want to acknowledge really quickly one of our team members, Tony Robinson from Robinson Public Affairs. If you were familiar with the Capitol Crossing project, Tony was doing a lot of the public engagement and stakeholder outreach on that. We were lucky to snag him as soon as they sort of finalized that. And we're working with a firm called AECOM. AECOM, they worked with NOMA with their Swamp Doodle Park that you may have heard of that they just launched, creating parks out of nothing. They worked with Capital Riverfront in terms of their public realm plan, Buzzard Point, and so we're working with the A-Team to try to create this strategy for parks and open space in our community. And we're lucky to have Ryan and Alexa and their team working with us on this. So it's a 5-phase project. We kicked off the effort. They're going to be looking at challenges and opportunities, doing some due diligence, some stakeholder engagement. We talked to a bevy of stakeholders from Georgetown University Law Center to a faith-based community, to property owners, to residents, to ANC commissioners. We've done a great deal of stakeholder engagement, but then also we've done some community engagement last week at Mount Carmel Baptist Church, where we invited the community to come in and tell us what they thought about the effort. And then we're in the process of synthesizing that information to coming up with some actionable strategies. The timeline for our work, we issued an RFP in November, selected AECOM, Tony back in December, commenced the project. January, we were really busy. We announced the effort publicly. We had about 10 to 12 one-on-one stakeholder meetings with groups of stakeholders, and then we did the public meeting and planning workshop at the end of the month on the 31st. So now we're just doing a lot of analysis of the information presented. We're coming here to give you a preliminary update. We hope you'll invite us back when the work is finalized and we have a final product.
Absolutely.
And then we can give you a final update on what we see as being a path forward. And we want your feedback as part of this process. So if there's something that's important to you, please let us know. And then from April on until whenever, we're going to be executing this strategy. We have to work with a lot of folks, the alphabets of agencies, whether it's National Park Service, DDOT, DMPED, OP, the mayor's office, et cetera, to try to get these plans executed, get some money, and then this is going to be a long-term process. So I want to just recap what the public meeting and planning workshop was all about. Basically, that Venn diagram below, I see the activities that people most want to do in MVT space overall. Just what do you want to do in open space around MVT? What do you want most to do in specific locations? Sometimes those answers are different. You may want to play with your kids, but you wouldn't want to play with your kids at Cobb Park, or you wouldn't want to bring your dog to a certain location. So those questions are very important. And then we also look at the site. What does the site want to do? What does the site want to be? That's a very specific and important question for that particular piece of real estate, because that site can't support all needs. If it's an MPS site, we know we can't have an off-leash dog park there because the federal law prevents it, right? And so from those questions, based on those questions, we're going to determine what that space wants to be, and then that's what's going to ultimately lead that strategy. So I just want to let you all know these are some of the locations we're considering as part of the plan. So we have the 5 MPS sites spread around the triangle and down into the downtown DC bed, Chinatown Park, known affectionately. We have Cobb Park. We have, and right now Cobb Park has some construction equipment on it because of the Capitol Crossing project. That's going to move maybe as early as June back to open space. We have a parking deck that you may be familiar with. I think DMPED was here last year talking about that project, how they wanted to put a building there. And so there's that activity. And then we have some spaces that are sort of non-traditional. There's some rights-of-way that DDOT and federal highways sort of maintain alongside 395. Those spaces are underutilized. They just sort of sit there. And so why can't we think imaginatively about that space and what we can do with that space to provide uses that the community wants and may find attractive? We sort of floated this by DDOT, some senior leaders there, and they thought it was a really, really neat idea. We're seeing in cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, that they're taking some of these open-air freeways, just like Capitol Crossing, and they're adding amenities around them, because otherwise those spaces are just useless spaces. And then there's a corner lot here that Pepco has control of for their substation, and we've had some preliminary high-level conversations as well about some of that green space they potentially won't be using. So I wanted to give you all a flavor of some of the places we're looking at for some of these activities. And what were some of the activities polled? So you'll see here, this is a sample of one of the boards that was at the workshop where we get people docs, and we said, tell us what you want to do in these spaces. And we asked for activities as diverse as sit in the shade, to people watch. People watch didn't get a whole lot of dots, by the way. Have a picnic, visit a meadow, walk through a meadow. And I've been looking at, since we've done this exercise, a sort of heat map here. This is where I sort of grouped all these exercises, and there were some that didn't get hardly any feedback at all in terms of any desirability. And there's some, just to give you just sort of a quick update, visit a dog park across the board. We have a lot of people who love pets. Play field sports, play on a playground, attend a festival, and sit in the shade. Then there are a lot of activities in between that we sort of have to figure out where's the most appropriate space for those types of activities. So that's where we are. Thank you for allowing me to give you an update. I'm happy to take questions, or feel free to reach out to me afterwards at the office or here if you have any specific questions about the work we're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I was at the event on the 31st, and I can say for most of us who live in the city, particularly Mount Vernon Triangle, the #1 thing people are looking for is green space, and it's limited. So the work you guys are doing is absolutely fantastic and is essential to people's enjoyment of the community. So I can't thank you guys enough for doing this great work. Does anybody on the commission have a question? All right, well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, we got one in the back.
Has it, I went to the meeting last week. So last week you said that you didn't know who was gonna be responsible for the maintenance.
Mhm.
So that is such a big deal. We talk about these parks, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, maintaining it after the fact is it. I mean, so I don't, is there a higher percentage that'll be your group or DPR or what?
Did I say that?
Yeah, I mean, you tell me.
So, because my answer is governance, that's what you're talking about, right? It's a big word, big
Who's
G
gonna
word.
clean up the garbage? Who's gonna?
Governance,
do all
right,
that?
governance of these spaces.
Yep.
That's a very important part, and we have thought through that. The governance models can be everywhere from purely public sector, DPR, take care of this, to somewhat of a more sort of private interest, or an organization like ours, like the BID, right, managing and maintaining these parks, to a hybrid mix, like a Friends of Stead Park, Friends of C&O Canal. So you've seen Friends models that are sort of public-private models. And so we've thought about that. We can't really apply a specific governance model to these locations until we know what these locations are gonna be. Because I think what these locations are gonna be are gonna dictate what governance model is most appropriate to maintaining those spaces. So I think we still have a little bit more work to do is the answer there, Rochelle, before we can get to that question. That answer, but by March, I will have that answer for you.
All right, well, thank you very much, I appreciate it. We kind of got to move along with our agenda tonight. I'm sure Mr. Robinson would be willing to take some questions if you guys wanted to take it out in the hallway. He'll take them all. So moving on to the 13 and 1400 blocks of 6th Street. This is in Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Wiggins' district. Gentlemen, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Frank, you want to go ahead and leave, because
Yes,
you've been more involved.
Well, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I met with the leadership of First Rising Baptist Church along with the DDOT director, Jeff Marudian, and we conversed about parking needs, diagonal parking needs in the 1300 block of 6th Street. At the present time, when First Rising Baptist Church have services, later today about 3 o'clock, when they have special programs, oftentimes, because the diagonal parking is only increased till 3 o'clock at present, a lot of the parishioners get $250 tickets after that particular time. So in meeting with Director Marudian, he wanted to work with the agency, but he had no problem with getting the diagonal parking extended to just 6 o'clock in the evening so that the parishioners won't be ticketed for coming to service. Some may know that over the past 3 years, the city has lost about approximately 30 churches, one being in our own very neighborhood, Scripture Cathedral, just due to the lack of parking in the immediate area. So First Rising came to me, and as well as Jeff Marudian, Director of DDOT, asking for support to get extended diagonal parking on Sundays only until 6 o'clock on that particular day.
Frank, I think it's 6:30. That was what you presented.
What they asked me was 6 o'clock,
Okay.
half an hour. 6
Okay,
o'clock or 6:30? 6:30?
Right.
So 6:30.
Right there.
Great. And does anybody have any, I'm sure. Wait a minute, Rochelle, we'll let the gentleman go first. Yes, sir, yeah, you.
Okay, does that cover Springfield Baptist also from
Yes,
Post
it
Street to
does.
Peachtree?
Yeah, the 1300 block represents First Rise, and the 1400 block is for Springfield. So that's Anthony Brown's Signaling District. The 1300 is in my Signaling District.
Right.
All right, Rochelle?
So I asked commissioners not to support this, and Alex is very familiar with this. This annual parking, and I support the church, don't get me wrong, but this annual parking extension thing has got to stop. It is now this jig-jag, and with the United House of Prayer and the other churches, and it is simply dangerous. It is simply, they all need to end at the same, what time is it now, Frank? That for Springfield, what time is it now in?
3.
3.
Everyone needs to end at 3. The United House of Prayer, they all need to end at the same time. This jig-jag back and forth during different times is not safe, and no one talks about that. It is ridiculous. And they all need to end at 3 o'clock. I don't,
I live a
why
block
there's
away.
always discussion, I don't get it, it's not safe.
I live a block away from this area. I don't think we've had one accident since the agro
I
parking was
sat
increased.
there and watched people get out of their cars and yell at, it's ridiculous. I can take a video, Frank. It happens all the time.
All right, well, argument, sure, but there hasn't been any
Not to my knowledge.
accidents?
And Director of DDOT, he was favorable to the idea, he just needed us to go through the channels.
As you recall, it's because Phil Mendelson supported all this stuff in the past, and now it's moving forward. Again, I'm not gonna go on and on, but it's ridiculous. It's not safe, and that's what should be the number one priority.
Yes, sir?
I'm sure Administrator Deacons of Shiloh, we've had a diagonal parking in the 1500 block of 9th Street for years. We haven't had any accidents. We haven't had any problems at all. One thing we do, we put people out there to make sure that the safe, and I'm certain that the other churches can, if they don't already, do the same thing. I note that we have a similar thing that's done on Rhode Island Avenue, not diagonal parking, but there's an angle, a whole lane that's taken away. But they put people out there to make sure that people proceed carefully. You're going to have people that are reckless, regardless what the parking regulation says. But if you take the simplest precautions, no one wants to have accidents, and people will take care of that problem. I think what they're asking for is perfectly reasonable. Quite honestly, I don't think you're asking for enough. I think they should be asking for 830, like what's done on Rhode Island Avenue. And we haven't had any problems at all with accidents.
I thank you.
I'll send you a video.
Okay, Commissioner Brown, would you like to add anything to the discussion?
No, we discussed it, and basically being fair, along that entire strip, there are different variances of angle parking. We felt that it wouldn't be robbery to allow Springfield and First Rising to enjoy the same benefits as House of Prayer and some of the other organizations do. We are in support of it.
Would either one of you like to make a motion?
I'd like to move the ANC 6E support the request of First Rising and Springfield Baptist to allow extended parking to 6:30 on Sundays only for the 1300, 1400 block of 6th Street, Northwest Washington.
Second.
Friendly amendment?
Yes.
To specify diagonal.
Diagonal parking, and relay that over to DDOT and the Director of DDOT, Jeff McGree.
And it's been seconded?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Same. One abstention. All right, moving along, we got 433 M Street Northwest.
So this is a project that's in my single-member district. The applicant owns a home at 433 M Street that was built in conjunction with a carriage house. And when the owners purchased the property, the carriage house is not zoned as a legal third unit, and the owners are seeking, would you like to?
Sure. I mean, you did half of the presentation. We're not proposing to change anything. My name is Alex Wilson from Sullivan and Barrows. I'm the land use attorney for the project, and I'm here on behalf of Rick and Pam Scott, who own 433 M Street. And when they purchased the property, the seller said, "Oh, this third unit, it's legal, it's rented out, don't worry about it." And it wasn't until recently they realized, no, it's not legal, and they need a special exception and variance relief from the BZA in order to make it legal. And we're not touching it at all, it's just to make it right and everything.
And the zoning committee met about this, and the one concern that the committee had was there was not at the time a reply from FEMS about